Picture a seed. A farmer holds it between two fingers, and then he does something that looks, from the seed's point of view, like betrayal. He drops it into a hole, he covers it with dirt, and he walks away. If that seed could feel, it would feel abandoned. No light, no voice, no sign that the hand that planted it is ever coming back. Just darkness and pressure and silence. But you know what's happening in that silence. You know that the darkness isn't the end of the seed. It's the beginning of the harvest. The silence is not absence. The silence is where the miracle is being made. Some of the most faithful Christians you will ever meet are quietly falling apart, and nobody warned them why. Not because God spoke a harsh word to them, but because He hasn't spoken at all. And in that silence, without even realizing it, they begin to do things that damage their own faith, not out of rebellion, out of pain. Because God's silence is one of the most dangerous seasons in the life of a believer, not because God is dangerous, but because of what we're tempted to do while we wait. So today, I want to walk with you through 7 things you should never do when God goes silent. Some of these you may be doing right now, tonight, without knowing the door it opens. And by the time we reach the 7th one, I want to show you what that silence is actually doing, because I promise you, it is not what you think. Stay with me to the end. The last one changes everything. Now let me say something first, because I don't want you to hear condemnation where I mean comfort. If you're in a silent season right now, if you've prayed the same prayer for months and heard nothing back, if the heavens feel like brass and your Bible feels like paper, I am not here to scold you for struggling. The struggle is not the sin. Some of the godliest people in Scripture wrestled in the silence. Listen to David. In Psalm 13, he cries out, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" That is a raw, honest, almost accusing prayer. And God put it in the Bible. He didn't edit it out. He wasn't offended by it. So if that's your prayer tonight, you are in holy company. But watch where David goes. That same psalm, the one that starts in the dark, ends with these words, "But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation." Same psalm, same man. He didn't get an answer in those 6 verses. What he got was a decision. And the decision is everything. That's the difference between someone the silence refines and someone the silence ruins. Not whether you feel it, what you do in it. So here are the 7 things you must never do while you wait. Number 1, never assume his silence means he has abandoned you. This is the first lie the silence whispers, and it is the root of all the others. He's gone. He's done with you. You've been forgotten. I once sat with a man who told me, with tears, that he was sure God had walked out of his life. When I asked him why, he didn't point to a sin. He pointed to a silence. "I used to feel him," he said. "Now there's nothing. So he must have left." But feeling is not the same as presence. Read the Gospels, and you'll find Jesus asleep in the back of the boat while the storm nearly swallows the disciples. He wasn't gone. He was there, closer than the waves, closer than the fear. His silence in that boat was not abandonment. It was an invitation to a deeper kind of trust than the disciples had ever needed before. When you assume silence means abandonment, you open a door to despair, and to believing something about God's character that simply isn't true. Don't walk through it. The seed in the ground has not been forgotten by the farmer. It has been positioned by him. But knowing you haven't been abandoned is only the first battle. Once the silence can't convince you that God left, it changes tactics. It starts pushing you to go find another voice to fill the space. He left quiet. Number 2, never fill the silence with other voices. This one is subtle, and it is deadly. When God goes quiet, the human heart cannot stand the silence, so it starts reaching for someone, anyone, to speak. And so, people go looking. They start reading horoscopes just for fun. They call the psychic hotline just once. They chase every prophetic word from every stranger online, desperate for someone to tell them something. They fill the silence of God with the noise of everything else. Do you remember King Saul? There was a season when God stopped answering him, and instead of humbling himself and waiting, Saul went to a medium in the middle of the night at Endor to summon a voice from the dead. He could not bear the silence of God, so he went looking for a voice God had forbidden. And that night was the beginning of his end. Hear me carefully. When God is silent, that is not your cue to go find another mouthpiece. It is your cue to guard your ears. Every voice that rushes in to fill God's silence should be tested, because not every voice that offers you comfort is sent by God. Some doors, once opened, are very hard to close. Take your questions to God in prayer, not to a medium, not to a stranger, not to the algorithm. Reaching for the wrong voice is one way we panic in the silence, but there's a louder one. Some of us don't go looking for a voice at all. We grab the situation with both hands and try to force the answer ourselves. Number 3, never force a door open out of impatience. There is a particular kind of person the silence tempts. The doer, the one who cannot sit still. And when God doesn't move fast enough, they decide to move for him. Think of Abraham and Sarah. God had promised them a son, and then silence, years of it. And in that silence, Sarah did the math and decided God needed help. So they manufactured their own answer through Hagar, and Ishmael was born. Not a bad child, but not the promise. And the pain of that forced door is still being felt in the world today. Force a door open in the silence, and you'll give birth to an Ishmael when God was preparing an Isaac. I have watched people quit the marriage, take the shortcut, sign the deal, force the relationship, all because the silence was unbearable, and they mistook their own impatience for faith. Waiting is not weakness. Sometimes the most faithful thing your hands can do is nothing at all. Don't dig up the seed to see if it's growing. You'll only kill it. But not everyone forces the door. Some of us do the exact opposite. We go quiet right back at God, and without ever deciding to, we let go of the one thing that keeps us tethered to Him. Number 4, never stop praying just because you've stopped hearing. This is the quiet one. Nobody decides to stop praying. It just quietly erodes. You prayed every day, then every few days, then only when it's bad, and then one morning, you realize you haven't really talked to God in weeks. The silence made you silent. But look at how Jesus prayed in Gethsemane. He was in the deepest agony of his life, sweating like drops of blood, and heaven gave him no rescue and no easy answer. And what did he do? He prayed again, and a third time. He kept talking into what felt like silence. And remember the widow in Luke 18? The one who kept coming back to the unjust judge, knocking and knocking until she got her answer. Jesus told that story specifically so that his people would not lose heart and give up. When you stop praying in the silence, you don't just lose a habit, you let the silence harden into distance. And distance is exactly what the enemy wants. Keep knocking. Pray into the quiet, even when the quiet doesn't answer yet. The prayer that gets no immediate reply is still building something in you. And hold on to this, because it's the thread running through all 7. Every one of these warnings is guarding the same thing. By the time we reach the last one, you'll see what it is, and why the silence was never what it looked like. But for now, keep praying, and guard one more thing while you do, because the silence will press you toward the single kind of move you can never take back. Number 5, never make a major, irreversible decision inside the silence. When you can't hear God clearly, that is precisely the wrong moment to make the biggest moves of your life. And yet the silence pressures us to do exactly that, because uncertainty is so uncomfortable that any decision feels better than no decision. In the wilderness, Israel followed a cloud. When the cloud moved, they moved. When the cloud stayed, they stayed, even if staying made no sense to them, even if they were impatient, even if they were sure it was time to go. They did not move while the cloud was still. Psalm 27 says it plainly. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. Not because waiting is easy, because moving ahead of God is dangerous. If the cloud hasn't moved, don't move. Don't quit the job. Don't leave the city. Don't burn the bridge. Don't end the thing in the middle of the silence just to make the discomfort stop. A decision made from panic is almost never the decision God was forming in the quiet. Those first 5 all guard what your hands do in the silence. This next one guards something deeper. It's about what the silence tries to do to your heart, and it does more quiet damage than all the rest combined. Number 6, never believe the silence is proof you've been disqualified. This is the cruelest lie of all, and it is the one that sends people quietly away from God for good. The whisper says, "He's silent because you failed. You prayed wrong? You sinned too much? You're not worth an answer." So let me put Job in front of you. For chapter after chapter, dozens of them, God said nothing to Job while Job suffered. And when God finally spoke, he never once told Job it was because Job had been disqualified. The silence was never a verdict against him. And think of the darkest cry in all of Scripture. On the cross, Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Those are the opening words of Psalm 22, a psalm that begins in what feels like total abandonment and ends in total vindication and victory. Even the Son, in the deepest silence, was not actually disqualified. He was in the middle of accomplishing the greatest rescue in history. So do not read your silence as a sentence. Shame will tell you to withdraw, to hide, to stop showing up. Don't. The silence is not God turning his back. Very often, it is God doing his deepest work in the place you can't see. Number 7, never waste the silence, because the silence is doing something you cannot see. This is the one I begged you to stay for. Because everything changes when you understand what the silence actually is. There is a moment in the Gospel of John that should stop every one of us cold. Word comes to Jesus that his dear friend Lazarus is sick, dying. And what does Jesus do? The text tells us, when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Read that again. He heard the man he loved was dying, and he deliberately, intentionally waited. He let the silence fall. He let Lazarus die. To Mary and Martha, those days of silence must have felt like abandonment, like he didn't care, like they'd been forgotten. But Jesus wasn't absent. He was timing something. Because a healing would have been a nice story, but a resurrection would shake the world. The silence wasn't him doing nothing. The silence was him preparing a greater glory than they knew to ask for. Do you see it now? The silence was not the tomb. The silence was the womb. Go back to the seed we started with. When you feel buried, when it's dark and quiet, and the hand that planted you seems long gone, you are tempted to believe you are in a grave. But a seed in the dark is not dead. It is not abandoned, it is planted. The silence pressing in on every side is not crushing you. It is the exact condition life requires to break open. So carry this out of here with you. God's silence is not his absence. It is very often the sound of him working underground, where you cannot watch and cannot rush him and cannot take the credit. You are not buried. You are planted. And if that just lifted something off your chest, if you needed to hear that the silence isn't a sentence, then do something for me before we finish. Take 1 second and subscribe, because this channel exists to put truth like this in front of people who are quietly struggling and think they're the only ones. And if this has been a blessing to you, that simple click helps it reach the next person sitting in the dark tonight. Now stay with me, because I don't want to leave you with only comfort. I want to leave you with a warning against the opposite ditch, because there's a wrong way to wait too. But there's a danger on the other side too. Some people hear wait on God and turn it into an excuse to do nothing, to drift, to go passive, to sit in a kind of spiritual paralysis and call it faith. But biblical waiting is not passive. Look at the words the Bible uses. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart. Strength, courage. Those are active words. The farmer who plants the seed doesn't then abandon the field. He waters, he weeds, he watches, he tends the ground while he waits for what only God can grow. So active waiting looks like this. You keep praying even when there's no reply. You keep reading the word even when it feels flat, because the word is the one voice you never have to doubt in the silence. You keep showing up to worship, to community, to the small obediences right in front of you. You do the last thing God clearly told you to do, and you keep doing it until He says otherwise. Waiting is not the absence of movement. It is refusing to move ahead of God while you keep moving with Him in the things He's already made clear. There's a ditch on both sides of this road. Don't force the door open in panic, and don't fall asleep in the field either. So let me speak right to you now, wherever you actually are tonight. Maybe you're the one who's been begging God for an answer about your health, or your child, or your marriage, or your future, and all you've gotten is quiet. I want you to hear that your silence is not the same as His absence. He has not left the boat. Or maybe you're further down than that. Maybe the silence has already started to work on you. You've stopped praying. You've started listening to voices you know you shouldn't. You're about to force a door open just to make the ache stop. If that's you, this video found you on purpose. Step back from the door. Not yet. Not like this. Or maybe you're the one carrying the shame, quietly certain that the silence is God's verdict on your failures. Let that lie die tonight. You are not disqualified. You are planted. And the God who buried that seed knows exactly where you are and exactly what He's growing. Come back with me one last time to that seed in the dark ground. Weeks pass, nothing on the surface, just dirt and silence, and a farmer who looks, to anyone watching, like he's forgotten the field. And then one morning, a crack in the soil, a thread of green, the very thing that felt like burial turns out to have been the beginning of the harvest all along. The silence was never the end of your story. It was the chapter where God did the work no one could see. It was never a grave. It was always the ground. So don't do those 7 things in the dark. Don't assume you're abandoned. Don't fill the quiet with the wrong voices. Don't force the door. Don't stop praying. Don't make the reckless move. Don't believe you're disqualified, and don't, whatever you do, waste what the silence is growing in you. If you're in a silent season right now, I want you to do one thing. Type these 4 words in the comments as a declaration over your own life so someone else scrolling in the dark can see they're not alone. God, I trust your timing. Type it and mean it. Then go tend your field and wait for the green.